So that's.
You know, the first year I ever came here was in 19. Is it the year of 73 or 73? That was like below zero.
Really, so that's happening.
I mean, that was cold.
So
People had to plug their cars in. And
Sounds pretty close to out there.
Fred's not gonna be here.
I don't know. Brad.
David is the legislature. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. We have a time crunch because there is a ethics training class that starts at 9 o'clock, and anybody still in the room will have to stay till the end of the class. We'll begin by asking for a motion to approve the minutes as have been provided.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I wasn't here, so I can't second it. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve minutes from the January meeting as provided. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Managers report.
Okay. I'll try to be quick today. A lot of the stuff has kind of been a preview or a keep up from the last couple meetings. Snow removal obviously is a challenge we've been dealing with. Sunday was interesting, and today's Groundhog Day, and the groundhog saw his shadows. We got 6 more weeks to keep going with this stuff. So, but we're plugging through, hoping to get through the season. We have a couple things in the work for next year that I hope to have presentable to everybody probably by next meeting or so. So we keep plugging away on that. The other thing that I wanted to keep everyone up to date on is the Union Pacific lease. I worked with Taylor on getting them a payment, so we are up to date on that for the previous lease agreement. There's not been a new lease agreement agreed upon yet, but we are keeping up to date on the last lease agreement amount, and so we're making those payments right now. So we're at least up to date on the previous lease amount.
We're pretending that we're not having a new one.
Yeah, maybe. No, I wouldn't say we're pretending there's not a new one. I think we're in the process of getting a new one or creating a new one. And so I think we just want to stay up to date and look and
Participate. Yes, I understand.
So the new lease is in process, and so we hope to have that resolved.
We're continuing to pay on the old lease agreement.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So that's the update on that. The CIP and the master plan, nothing really new there. The fuel farm, we have some meetings planned for that and kind of the development of the new fuel farm. So that's moving forward. And just the other 2 things, the signs for the taxiway and the taxiway India project. We're having meetings with the FAA and Armstrong, and those are moving forward smoothly, I believe. So I think the only other thing I want to talk about is, I'm going to put them on the spot, but I have 2 special guests sitting in the back corner back there. 2 young ladies that came out and visited the airport yesterday for a high school project. And so I think what I like about that is maybe speaking with Groundhog Day is sometimes we get in a rut of kind of doing the same thing over and over again, especially like at an airport when I'm doing my inspections. I go up and down the runway every day. So one of my supervisors in the past talked about complacency. And so you always try to change your inspection up, do something different. And so having them out yesterday, it was good for me because they asked questions that I forget about or leave behind. What's the airport good for the community? Who uses the airport? things like that. And so to be able to answer those questions to them, like really brought me back to why I love the aviation industry and what the airport's good for and for the community and things like that. And so I just think it's good to have young kids, and female kids too, being excited about the aviation industry and just be able to share with them the possibilities and everything like that with the growth in the community, emergency services, mechanic abilities, and just the possibilities of the aviation industry and things that they do for the community, I think are really awesome. And so I think what I'm trying to get to is not only the future of aviation, but I'm going to open this up to, I think our next topic is kind of the history and the past of aviation and trying to tie all that together. And so that's all I have for today. So hopefully that kind of leads us into our next topic.
Any questions for Jason? He's doing a good job.
Thank you.
In my haste to get the agenda taken care of, I failed to recognize the presence of Lyle Snow. Why don't you take 2.5 minutes and tell us about your expertise and experience in airports?
Thank you. So I'm Ryan Snow. I am currently the city manager in Providence. But prior to that, I was the city manager in Roseville, where I oversaw the Roseville Airport, 74 Victor. We did a construction project there and redid the runway and taxiway, and actually added the taxiway. So it was a $9 million project there to oversee. Prior to that assignment, I was actually on the construction side. So there are documents of the Roosevelt Airport. I was assigned as the construction manager for the paving company to do the work, and then actually got the chance to accept it as the city manager when it was done. So
Wow.
kind of a realm of possibilities on that airport. I started with the construction side and then actually was able to accept it, which is a rare position to be in. But I do have 10 years in heavy highway construction experience, and including a couple of airports. Have grant experience, have been to the UAOA a number of times. Know several of the engineers. I knew your predecessors, and most importantly, I have a plane here at the Logan Airport. So I'm a happy pilot. And on a day like this, it would be really nice to be flying rather than in a meeting, but I'm happy to be here too. So
We'll get you out early. Lyle has been appointed to take Bill Francis's position on the board. So he'll be a county appointee. Weather events created an opportunity for the university to feel the need to divest themselves of the historic World War II tower. And there's a lot of interest been expressed from patrons of the airport that the board adopt that tower as a means of allowing donations to be channeled to restoring that tower to its historic condition. Is there anyone here that's prepared to speak to that? I've got a couple of letters here that I'll read. If someone wants to speak now, come forward. Otherwise, I'll introduce these letters while you're thinking about it. From Bill Francis. The tower is a symbol of Cache Valley. Judd found a picture in his research for the master plan. That picture's from about 1945. It's in pictures published of happenings at the airport, such as flights to remote parts of the state by USU. back when they were doing their distance learning via flights out of Logan. The tower served as a manager's office from the 50s to the 70s. This is a possibility that could be considered again. It could be combined with the USU building. That was the airline terminal in the 60s. That goes back almost to Briggs time, doesn't it? It would make a great observatory or small museum for historical photos and memorabilia. It is one of the only towers left from the civilian pilot training program. Then he suggests some grant opportunities we might pursue. We need to act quickly before it falls deeper into disrepair. Then his closing remark, we need to remember our history to preserve our future. I reached out to a friend that some of you may know, Jim Peterson. He was airport manager of Wendover and is now the director of the Wendover Airport Museum. Most of you will know that Wendover was the training site for the bombers who ultimately dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. All of that took place in Wendover. Our tower is a four tower structure with usable space on the 3 lower levels. And that, I think, is where the office may have been. And the upper level is a 16 by 16 bird cage with glass all the way around. This is Jim Peterson's comments about their tower, because they had undergone a restoration event. We only have metal stairs leading up to the top, which is 14 by 14. The tower is 60 feet tall. We allow people to climb the control tower, but keep the interior locked unless one of the museum staff are present. We spent about $40,000 on restoration. A good chunk was reworking the windows of the control box. We're in the process of getting a quote to replace those windows. If we do it with tempered glass, it's about $40 a foot, which would be about $16,000. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of what we're dealing with. The original modification was 5 windows per side. We put it back into the World War II configuration. Personally, I think it would be a great idea to restore it and have artifacts and photos. He's speaking of our town. Artifacts and photos of the period in the various levels. We also found some period radios to put in the bird cage. We're not quite finished with our ultimate plans, but as you said, someone has to step up to the funding. Then he goes on to ask some more questions about what we're doing. At the time that I think, and Brent can help me with this, at the time that Great Western was flying their commuter service out of Logan, the tower, that was when the tower was the manager's office, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was also the manager's office when I owned it.
Okay.
So before,
Was that before Great Western or after Great Western?
after,
Okay. Yeah.
So we
remodeled the bottom floor, and that's where they're going.
You're one of the few last living that really know that history. Appreciate that. Other comments, questions?
Do we own,
input.
do we own the building?
No, that, I don't know when it was acquired, that it, probably about the time of Great Western was here, when they were building that, terminal. They acquired ownership of the tower at that time. And the, owner of the, terminal building has been paying, lease, making lease payments on the ground on which the tower sits. It's a 16 times 22 cents. It probably costs about $75 a year.
Is it a visionary lease or a, does it come back to us at some point?
Not without them just transferring, taking official action. And at this point, they have the option of removing it, which is probably what is disconcerting some people.
If I wanted a tour, does the manager have an access to that?
I have the key. And they've got paradise with Utah State University.
So, John, you said the university wants it to come down,
Yes, because,
but they're not owners.
yeah, they are owned.
Oh, I thought you said Great Western was.
Great Western sold it to Utah Jet sold it to the university.
Okay.
You have both floors?
No, just this one historically. Yeah. Yeah, so on that, so that it's ours, like, we've been talking about it, and financially, it's not the flight program's responsibility to repair the building. The university has showed no interest in trying to repair or save that building, because we've gone up to the university if they had anything to do there. They said the liability of it's too great for students to even go in there with the circular staircase in there being the only access up or down if there's any fire or whatever. And so that was their decision. They said, well, if we can't give it to some historic place that wants it, then we're gonna take it down. That's where we're at this point. And so we brought it to the board and David Zook and others and said, do you guys want this building? We hate to tear it down. Our intention is not to do that, but I can't use flight fees to repair a building. So, and then raise the rates by, who knows how much for the students to repair that.
When the, we'll call it the microburst hit it, don't know how long the glass has been there, but those glass shards were spread at least 200 feet downwind. When most of the glass up in the cupola shattered, and so I think no one had ever considered the liability risk of that glass until it took the better part of 3 days to get it cleaned up.
Well, I think it's definitely worth working to preserve that and restore it and to find, I'm sure we'll be able to find grants and other sources of funding to do that. There's a lot of interest in history and preserving history, and not only grants from entities, but I think even donations and things like that can probably be solicited and found to help in that. You said the university's willing to give it to,
Yes,
so
this week we should be transferring all of our stuff off, the signage, the lights, the internet, and the cameras that are currently on there should all be moved off that building within, I'll say, 2 week time period. Unless cold sticks around, who knows how long.
So do we need to create,
I was
some
just gonna
sort
say
of
we
a-
need to create, I think, some kind of a historical committee or something.
you know, like, I mean, even, I know that we spent a lot of time this summer, my grandkids and I, climbing lighthouse towers, and they're just as dicey as an airplane tower, aviation tower in terms of, you know, curvy stairs. But they were all historic societies, so that,
Right.
you know, they were all part of a, you know, some sort of an entity that is responsible for preserving and
The main issue is liability. The university doesn't want to have that liability.
Right,
So they're willing to donate the tower to the county or the airport authority board or historical entity to be created to preserve that tower.
well, can we accept it as the airport authority board?
I know of no reason why we couldn't. It is on the airport. At one time, it belonged to the airport.
And could we incorporate a plan for that structure into the master plan?
Just as a question, how many of the rest of you have been in it? Because I haven't been in it. I'd like to go in it before I decide whether we want it or not.
And it either, so.
Can I maybe have us find a time that anybody else would like to go in? If you've already been in, I'd like to catch up, before we go.
I'm the only one that's been.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to have, again, the risk managers look at it, which is, the same issue that Utah State faced.
I think it'd be interesting to have an exploratory group before we get the committee to accept it and redo it. Maybe exploratory to see what condition it's in.
I think that's a good idea.
I see those as two separate actions. Receiving it is one, but
Agreed.
doing something with it.
But he's saying look at it before we even decide
Agreed,
if
but-
we want to receive it, which.
And I think the third is an exploratory of understanding its conditions, whether we want to receive it or restore it. I think those two would come after, but you're right. I agree with you. Those are different.
Well, yeah, I think that the challenge becomes the university would like to move on it. So if we want any opportunity to,
Universities had it for decades.
yeah,
And I think they can give us at least a point of time. They can't not give it to us if we want it. It's on our property, it's on land that's owned by them. They don't have anybody else that can give it to without our permission. So I don't think they can move without us.
But we got some time.
You got some time.
Okay.
And I think, and we've got about 6 minutes left with their presentation.
They're going to start pounding on the door.
they're out there talking about whatever.
We will arrange the time. Why don't you take the lead and arrange the time, and then we will notify the other interested party to meet that time. Any other items of business? Anyone want to add any more input on the tower?
I can add one small bit of, during research for the airport master plan, it is not listed on the National Registry of Historic Places right now. However, there are case numbers going back to 1997 for the application of this specific tower as registered on the National Registry of Historic Places. Obviously, if it's there, you can't just go tear it down. So it's one of those considerations that needs to be had. It is not currently listed, but there's definitely lots of precedents for towers such as these ending up on that list, and the work was started on it 26 years ago. So add another 26 years of history onto that.
So it's been, people have applied?
There is a registration case number, is the most I've been able to find so far.
Okay.
Really wasn't, I was more just including it, so here is a piece of the history. I wasn't addressing this particular problem. It was just one of the many aspects of the airport.
Thank you.
I would just vote, add my vote to, I think we should seriously consider a way to preserve it, even if it's just a symbol. If we're not able to get people inside for liability or having them upstairs and separate empty or this looks like these other towers, I think there's value because it's an iconic structure.
With that, the glass and things still need to be repaired. The glass is halfway in there, halfway broken. So I don't think just leaving at it
No,
as
it's
is
a new
an option
structure.
either.
It needs to be.
We
So-
need to move quickly.
Yeah, can we try to revisit this next month in our meeting?
Yeah, we'll try to get everybody in, either tomorrow or weekend or early next week, something like that. There are a couple of things. The FAA does not offer any funding for historical preservation. Uh, There are other government entities that do, and certainly they would be available for us to seek funding. Personally, I'm not comfortable using authority board money for expenditures that don't directly relate to the operation. But I'm only one vote. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned and anticipate we'll discuss this again in a little more detail 4 weeks from today.
Sounds good.
Buster.